The frazzled look of, I have a flight in about 3 days and I still have a ton of work to do. It's a good look on me. I actually don't know what I look like without it anymore. Hey everybody, my name is Mathas and welcome to another episode of Judge Mathas.
Oh,
Today, Mathas has come to see us. Oh, hey, yeah, it's good to be back. I'm actually really pumped for this one. I've been wanting to talk about this game for a while. There's just a lot to talk about here. It should be a good one. So without further, hey, Mathas has come to see us. Thanks. Yeah, no, I'm really pumped to be back. God bless you, Mathas. Hi. Yeah, hi. Is that Mathas? God bless you, Mathas. God bless you, Mathas. Mm-hmm. Hey, Mathas has come to see us. God bless you, Mathas. Hey, Mathas. Hey, Mathas. God bless you, Mathas. Oi! Oh, hey.
I can't do it! I can't do it! I can't do it!
Is that Mathas? There's something to be said about immersion in a video game. The feeling of actually being in the world, exploring it, being a part of it, and in most cases, the hero of it. It can bring players into places they only thought imaginable. A well-designed world and atmosphere can do wonders for a sense of immersion. Now, couple that with simulation aspects, and it can further enhance that immersion for a player. And we've seen simulation aspects trickling into our games over the past decade or so, or further back if you're a big PC gamer. Hell, one of Oblivion and further Skyrim's biggest selling points was its AI. They had a sleeping schedule, shops opened and closed during certain hours, dynamic questing was later brought in with the introduction of Skyrim. All of that added to a sense of a living, breathing world, and when done right, truly makes you feel as though you are part of this game's environment. That's where our game today comes in. Today, we're taking a look at Kingdom Come Deliverance by Warhorse Studios. And on paper, Kingdom Come Deliverance is a great idea. An RPG set in a historically accurate Bohemia during a time where turmoil and war over the next king and emperor was breaking out. You'll play as Henry, a lazy, useless scrub of a young man whose father is his small town's blacksmith. You'll start useless, barely able to hold a sword, and through gameplay and practice, you and in turn Henry will get better and better at using the weapon of your choice, going from a useless nobody to a formidable combatant. All the while, you'll have to manage sleep, eating, varying other skills like alchemy, horse riding, stamina, and yes, even have to worry about how clean you look so people, especially the nobles, don't scoff at you and look down on you when you're trying to speak with them. And if it sounds like a lot, to be fair, it is. Very few games aim to jump into that kind of level of simulation, and if done wrong, those fun little aspects of gameplay can go from immersing you into the game and having you believe that you are actually in the shoes of our dear old Henry, and instead annoy the ever-living hell out of you and make you realize you're doing nothing but glorified grinding and rip you out of the experience wholesale. Moreover, this is Warhorse Studios' first game, which was kickstarted and then further partially produced by Deep Silver. With eyes to the sky and their goals so lofty, it would have been something of a miracle that it launched in perfect working condition and delivered on all their promises of immersing you into a world where it lives and breathes and you too must live, breathe, eat, sleep, and so on. So, what did we get? A Eurojank masterpiece. And depending on who you tell that to, they'll either be really excited or kind of worn off from the game. But, my dear viewer, I hear you ask, what is Eurojank? Well, why not head over to our resident European and find out from the source.
I've been working on the railroad all the way.
Oh, Dean! Could you please explain to the viewers what Eurojank is?
Eurojank.
Now!
Okay, I'll do my best.
Eurojank is a colloquial term for a type of game developed in Europe, obviously, usually attributed to simulation games due to their high bug counts and strange and oftentimes unstable performance. You ever play Mountain Blade? An incredible simulation of feudal Europe, but also a janky and clunky war simulator. It's normally the result of a game's unreasonable scope being unable to work within the game's usually modest budget, as well as the developer's focus on the background mechanics and programming, sacrificing a smooth and steady gameplay experience for a realistic and oftentimes janky experience instead.
Thanks, buddy!
That's okay.
Now get back to work.
How though? I'm in a barrel.
Kingdom Come Deliverance is a thick game. Oh, hell, he said the word. Thick. Say it again, say it again. Kingdom Come Deliverance is thick?
That girl
Game
is thick.
Hell yeah. Oh, yeah, dude. Thick. An in-depth game. We got an in-depth game. There's so many different systems, both obvious and not so much, running in the background that it would probably take me a good hour to cover everything. So bear with me as I break down why I love/hate this game. And it doesn't help that the game opens up in the most mundane, cliche, by-the-book way imaginable. Like I said, you're the son of a small town's blacksmith who is clearly lazy, sleeps in, and doesn't give much of a flying heck about nearly anything. You'll run some chores, get into a fist fight that is a huge warning to come of how the fighting in this game works, and eventually your town will be overrun by unnamed baddies where you watch your parents get murdered and they steal your dad's last sword that he made with the hopes of giving it to a noble that your family is friends with. Henry tried to seek revenge, is ill-equipped and ill-trained, gets his ass handed to him before he gets rescued and eventually trained properly on how to use a sword and fight bad guys, and then be recruited by that noble your family was ever so close with. While cliche and overdone, it's not that aspect of the opening that really puts an immediate damper on the experience. It's that the opening that I personally described in under a minute takes well over 3 hours of playtime to finally put you in a position where the world opens up. Remember when I said you set off for revenge and eventually lose and be rescued? Yeah, the entire time the game pretends it taught you how combat works, because in the opening hour or so it does teach you the basics of combat. But in reality, it didn't. Not even close! So the whole time you're fighting, you feel like you're fighting against the controls, trying to figure out how to swing your sword properly, or how you intend to swing your sword, in the direction that you want to swing your sword, as well as trying to guard and manage your stamina and block properly all the while. It isn't until another maybe hour or so after being beaten and rescued does the game then put you into a training session, and then it actually properly teaches you how combat works, as well as unlocking crucial HUD elements that tell you where you're swinging, how to block, and when to block. And all of this was done in the name of immersion. You see, Henry has no idea how to fight, so to represent that, they removed all aspects of combat until that point where you're trained. And in doing so, without telling you, makes it feel that the game is kind of a mess of controls and unexplained hidden mechanics. The game straight up lies to you, pretending that it taught you how to fight early on when the reality is that it couldn't be further from the truth. It wants to immerse you and make you feel like Henry, and unfortunately those opening hours are a frustrating and, most importantly, boring droll until you reach the point where the game actually tells you how to play the game. There's a balance when you're attempting immersion in a game, especially with in-depth simulation systems running in the background. A very delicate one. If you lean too hard into the immersion and simulation of the game that you're making, you risk, as I said earlier, losing the player by frustrating them or just outright boring them. If something is boring or frustrating or repetitive in the name of immersion, then maybe it's time to dial back those mechanics just a tiny bit in the name of fun instead. Games are supposed to be fun, and if you're putting the player off right in the opening hours because of this, even if the player, like me, knew the kind of game they were getting into, it's time to rethink that piece of design. However, with all of that said, if you can push yourself past those opening hours and learn to speak the game's language, what awaits for you beyond all of that is a game that truly is pretty damn great. With caveats. The first and most instantly noticeable thing about this game is how pretty it is. While the character models are serviceable and some of the animations are a little on the stiff side, the world itself, including cities, towns, and little out of nowhere homes for you to discover, are incredibly well realized and with good detail. The countryside itself, as you roam through it on horseback, is breathtaking. The way the world is laid out, and the foliage rendered, and the draw distance is done, combined with wonderful audio that puts you right in the middle of nature, come together to create some gorgeous scenery that is a pleasure to explore. And with a huge open world to explore at your fingertips, and this being a game set in an actual real-life historical time period, my biggest fear was that the world would be empty, save for a few random encounters with some bandits and maybe hunting some wildlife. And while the world isn't overrun with magical monsters for our hero to slay, that's not to say that it's completely empty either. More often than not, if you're traversing from point A to point B either on horseback or via fast travel, you're likely to run into something. Maybe a beggar on the road needs help, or a trap some bandits set up has caught you, or a corpse in the middle of the road waiting to be investigated. Each one of these adds to the feeling that the wilderness beyond the walls of a city or town are definitely fraught with danger. And there's enough variety to prevent repeated encounters for a good while at least. Though towards the back third of the game I was seeing the same events over and over, especially the corpse in the middle of the road. What I found surprising though was that the lack of an overcrowded world filled with monsters eager to chomp on my left leg added to the feeling that the world was in fact alive. Sure, you're not encountering something every few minutes, but when you do, it's more impactful and more meaningful. What adds to that sense of importance is how combat works in the game too. The best way to describe it that I can think of is kind of For Honor in first person. You all have different directions you can aim your weapon and in turn block. Time your block correctly and you can follow up with a counterattack, hold your weapon in one direction and quickly change it last minute to fake out your opponent. And as you use a particular weapon that you may or may not favor more and more, you earn experience for that weapon type and unlock new moves and abilities with it, as well as start hitting harder with it. To add depth to the combat, each attack can cause an injury. Smack someone in the head hard enough and they'll start to bleed from the head, blurring their vision, or yours if it's your head. Hit a leg and they'll be slower, unable to dodge well, and can't run. But all of this takes practice. And as I said earlier, Henry is useless at the start, and they do everything in their power to show that to you. So even after you've gotten some training under your belt, it'll be a little while before Henry can take on more than one opponent at a time. But given time, practice, and experience, you can become a powerhouse that after killing one of the baddies, the rest of the group will lay down their arms and surrender, where you'll then have a bunch of options on what to do with them. Kill them, release them after they pay you, release them but leave their weapons, or just release them all told. The choice is yours. Good actions or bad, the town folks and city folks around you take notice. And if you're caught robbing, for instance, they'll run off to the town guard, where you'll need to go to jail, pay a fine, or if you're extra smooth, lie your way to freedom. And continue to do bad acts near town or near any other town, and people find out, the town will not like you. Enter and the guards will shake you down, prices for shops will go up because you have kind of a bad reputation. I would advise against the stealth, as stealth in this game is very much one of the worst implementations of a stealth system I've ever encountered. On the surface, it's basically like any other stealth system in, say, a Bethesda game. You'll know if you're being seen via an icon on your HUD, and until you get really good, heavier armor makes you much more loud. However, every NPC while I played was omnipresent. It got to the point where the only time I attempted to sneak was when the story asked me to, and even then, it was so bad that the enemy saw me almost instantly and I failed the mission. Luckily, the game seemed to know this would happen and the main story pushed onward regardless of Henry and his big dumb feet. There's clearly a lot at work here, and I've barely touched on half the systems at play, though I did touch on the ones I find the most important, and don't have an hour to go over every little detail in the game. It's tough too. I've heard the game described like this, and I'll reiterate it to you because I fully agree with it, though I may not get it word for word. Kingdom Come Deliverance is almost a great game. On the surface, it has everything going for it. It's pretty, it's unique, difficult, and the story is even interesting beyond its obvious cliché tropes. But dig underneath that surface, and you'll see the whole game is being held up by a bunch of rickety planks and duct tape. Mess with it too much, go off the beaten path on a mission, main quest or side, and you risk rocking that foundation to its very core, and that suspension of disbelief and immersion fades away as AI gets stuck, walk in loops, constantly try and arrest you, even if you're cleared of any and all crimes, or just endlessly chase you through town trying to murder you, which I had happen a couple of times. But if you can look past all of that and are okay with a relatively hardcore game, the game really only saves if you quit or drink a special alcohol unless you mod it otherwise, with bugs and jank aplenty, there's a lot to love here. From its unique setting, interesting and complex combat, leveling system, and a gorgeous world to explore, I have a hard time not enjoying this game. I do have a hard time, however, recommending it to everyone, but there is very much a type of person this is for. And if you are that type of person, you already know it. It was really hard for me to narrow down what I wanted to talk about in this video, as this game is chock full of different systems. So I decided to really focus on the main aspects that you're going to be playing with, the simulation aspects, the open world itself, as well as the combat, which I find very, very important, and the leveling system. I could sit here and talk about the story and what I liked and hated about it, and I could sit here and say the voice acting is pretty damn well done, especially for the main character Henry and Sir Radzig. But I can't. I don't have hours at my disposal. So, that is why I, the Honorable Judge Mathas, judge this game as guilty. Guilty of biting off more than it can chew. They had pie-in-the-sky dreams, and I am genuinely impressed with what they were able to pull off with the budget that they had, which was $36 million. Which, to some, may sound like a lot, but really, in this day and age, it's not. I really enjoyed my time with this game, and I still have complaints about it, and it's by far not a perfect game. But if you go into this game knowing what to expect and it still sounds like something you would enjoy, I have no doubt in my mind that you are going to love your time with Kingdom Come Deliverance. I hear there's a sequel in the works and possibly some DLC, and I promise you I will be there day one playing both of those. So my question to you is simple. Is there a Euro jank or just game in general that is pretty buggy and clearly imperfect, but is still one of your favorite games or a game that you really, really liked? I'd love to know. I have a huge list of those types of games, and hopefully one day I'll get to cover them all if I'm lucky. But I'm curious to hear what your answers are in the comments section below. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of Judge Mathas. This was a fun one. I've been wanting to talk about Kingdom Come since I finished the game on my Let's Play channel. If you want to see the game in full detail, I have a 45-part full playthrough of the game over on the Mathas Games channel. Feel free to go check it out. And I do daily gameplay videos over on that channel as well. A big thank you to all of you who are just so wonderful for watching this show. And again, thank you for allowing this channel to be what it is. A special thank you to my patrons. If you are not a patron yet and you want to check out my Patreon, the link is in the description below. Keep an eye out because Dean and myself are going to be adding a few extra goodies for those who want to get involved in supporting me directly via Patreon. But if you don't, that's fine. I'm just glad you guys watched the videos. I hope you guys enjoyed. I can't wait to bring you the next episode, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.